My daughter is very zealous about running, and maybe when she was 8 or 9, 10, she was almost overzealous, and also a very talented runner. So by the time she was 12, she was getting invitations to the big American races like the New Balance Nationals and the Penn Relays. So she was one of the top runners in North America at that age. So I had to be very careful with her because of her enthusiasm. She wanted to run more, race more, train more. And I constantly had to reel her in like a fishing line, get her, slow her down, get her to temper her enthusiasm, watch out for overtraining.
Hi friends, this is Read and Write with Natasha podcast. My name is Natasha Tynes and I'm an author and a journalist. In this channel, I talk about the writing life, review books, and interview authors. Hope you enjoy the journey. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. Today we have with us author and coach Mark Ryall, who recently retired from teaching economics at Hillfield Stralan, I hope I pronounced this right, college in Hamilton, Ontario. His speculative fiction, Age Decoded, is Mark's first novel. He also just published his second book, Run, Daughter, Run, Father, which provides stories, anecdotes, and scientific advice on running and racing. His book, it's called Run, Daughter, Run, Father. It highlights the training adventures of him and his daughter, Stephanie, whom Mark coached and ran with. I told you he's a coach. So, Mark, welcome to the show. And so I'm so happy you're here. So if you can tell the listeners and the viewers, I'm mostly interested in your second book because sort of a runner wannabe. So, and I would want to know about your book. What's the book about and why did you write it?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me on your great show, Read and Write with Natasha Tynes. And thanks for having me as a guest. Yeah, my book, Run, Daughter, Run, Father, I guess right off the title is important because daughter becomes before father. Run, daughter, run, father. And the reason for that is my daughter, Stephanie, when she was 8 years old, said to my wife and I that she wanted to go running. And my wife, Lynn, and I thought, that's sort of weird, an 8-year-old. Like they play soccer and they do sports. She played hockey too. But just going for a pure run out on the streets seemed a little bit different. So I said to Lynn, I better go with Stephanie and make sure she, it's a big city, right? So sort of go with her and guide her. And I had done some running in high school, but that was 20 years ago. I'm now 45 years old at that time. And so I had to find a pair of sneakers and go and run with my daughter, Stephanie. And that was our first run. I remember those first steps, her first steps, but also my first steps back into running as a middle-aged adult and someone who had gotten very lazy. And so she got me into running. I didn't get her into running at all. And so she was the motivation. That was the sort of a serendipity, that event. And it changed my life, the rest of my life. The next 20 years I ran. I'm now doing triathlons. I did a lot of coaching, cross country. I'm competing for Canada. Actually, I'm competing for Canada in 2 months in the World Triathlon Championships in Spain.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going there with my wife. So all of that happened because of my dear daughter, Stephanie. And she is also a competitive runner, cross-country, track, and she's even tried some ultra races. So she's now 25 years old. So this is almost 20 years later. We're still running and we love it, both.
So you started running in your mid-40s?
Yes.
Okay. Was that hard? Because, I started running in my early 40s as well. And people warned me running is not good for you. You're going to ruin your knees. You're going to get, knee replacement, yada, yada, yada. I mean, I didn't listen. And so far, I still have my knees.
Yeah.
So how was it, your experience running in your mid-40s? And now you're a professional runner. So How was the experience?
Well, the thing you mentioned about knees, when I ran earlier in my life, in my late teens, and when I was 21 years old, I ran a marathon. I had knee problems, but that was a long time ago. When I got back into running in my 40s, a lot had changed. The technology, the use of orthotics, proper shoes, all the information was much better. So I've never had any major injury problems coming back in my 40s. And they say that your knees actually get stronger. Like they've analyzed the joints of distance runners. And as long as you don't have any mechanical issues that you have to look after, your knees and joints will actually get stronger from doing things like running. And it makes sense. Like the body is reacting to all that, to the stress that you put on it. So as long as it's good stress and it's the biomechanics is looked after using the current information, there's no problem. So when I started running, when I was in my late teens, tried those marathons, they were just, this is way back. This is now the early 1980s. Orthotics were just coming out. Like they didn't even know much about them and pronation and proper shoes. Okay. So now things have really changed. So hopefully you're healthy too, and that you feel like your joints are good, you know.
Yeah, I try. I'm running a 5K tomorrow just for fun, and I'm training for half a marathon.
Good.
But I'm very slow. Like the people who are like in the back, the old ladies. That's me.
Good.
But I finish.
That's great.
So what's your answer to people who say, I don't running is hard on your body, Well, how would you respond to them? And then they always go with that story about the person who
died of heart attack,
created the kind of pushed for the running movement in the US.
James Fix.
Yeah, James Fix. He died of a heart.
He had a heart defect. He had a heart defect, and he probably would have died, runner or not running. Running is great for the heart, as you know. It makes the heart bigger, stronger. That's why your heart rate, your resting pulse will go way down as you run more and more, because your heart volume is bigger, so it doesn't need to pump as much to keep blood flowing through your body even when you're resting. So that's why James Fix, that was an unfortunate story. I think he died in his early 50s. He was a great writer, running prophet. But we have a program here at U of T where Dr. Kavanaugh takes people who've had heart attacks and actually gets them running to strengthen their hearts. That's part of the treatment. So that's just sad that people attach themselves to that story as a negative. But I would say
excuse. I think it's their excuse not to run. Yeah. It's like the first thing they mention in that story, but they also mention it's hard on your body. It's hard on your joints. It's hard. How would you respond?
You do have to watch it. It is a repetitive, chronic activity where you're taking the same sort of steps time and time again. So you do have to be careful. They don't have to run, though. I mean, I always say to people, you could cycle, you could hike, you could walk, you could swim, biking. You don't have to. Running does not have to be the sport that you attach yourself. But running is a great sport, and it's fantastic. It makes your body and your mind, we can talk about that, body and mind, psychologically so many benefits. I just can't. So anybody who's negative about it probably hasn't tried it that much or may not know what they're missing.
Why do you think running is a great sport?
Well, physically, it's absolutely amazing. It's, like I've mentioned, the cardiovascular benefits, right? It can control, let's say, people who have problems with their weight management. They can lower their weight in a healthy way. It just makes you, like, I think especially cardiovascularly, because think of all the blood that's flowing as you're exercising. As with any aerobic exercise like cross-country skiing or long-distance walking or playing a lot of soccer or something, those activities will make you stronger. There's huge benefits to that. But I think psychologically, the benefits are just as amazing. And I think Harvard University, the school, TC Chen School of Public Health, there just did a study on running and the benefits for psychological health, mental health, and combating things like depression and all that as a wonderful way of making people feel better from a mental standpoint, which is fantastic. Even Buddhists or people with knowledge about meditation and things like that, say that running, because it's sort of a constant sport where your arms and your body and your breathing are all in sort of a rhythm, because there's a beautiful rhythm to it, that it's a natural mantra for meditation. I don't know, when you run, do you feel sometimes that your mind is able to relax and escape a bit,
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a cliche, but that runner's high, I get that runner's high usually at like mile 2.
Yes.
I listen to music, and that's important for me. And I have like a whole playlist just for running.
Fantastic.
So yeah, so I do get the runner's high, and what I feel is like a sense of joy. That's how I feel, and then and optimism, and then I'm a writer, so I get like ideas sometimes when I just feel really happy, and especially like at the 2 mile when you're still not hurting,
yeah.
when you kind of pass the warm-up phase and you're in the zone. And also the endorphins stay with me usually, like during the day. Like I ran this morning, just like 2.5 miles at the gym.
That's good.
And I like the days that I don't run, I know that I'm like in a bad mood. Even my outlook, it's kind of gloomy. I lose like any optimism in anything, and so yeah. I crave it. It becomes an addiction.
But it's a positive addiction, right? Compared to so many other, and the evidence there is if you can't run, and my daughter says the same thing. If she misses a day or two for whatever reason, she is just feels horrible. She really misses running, and she so great, good for you, and there is a reason why millions and millions of people have taken up running, and like I say, it doesn't have to be that sport. Cross country skiing and other aerobic activities can provide those highs too, and all the benefits. But now I'm in triathlon, so I'm doing. I'm sort of shifted a little bit. I still run 4 or 5 days a week, but I have, and it's been nice because I'm doing swimming and biking right now, and I actually feel like I'm floating when I'm doing those compared to running. So it's a floating sensation, which is a little different than just the pounding action of running, more pounding action. So I've sort of enjoyed that too. And I do distance swimming and distance biking as a complement, right? So
the book, is it some sort of like a biography, you would describe it?
It is,
or is it focused on running solely and like tips on running?
Yeah.
Like how would you describe the book?
It's got a lot of training advice and because it's my daughter and I who are the subjects of the book, it is a bit biographical. So I always inject stories, sometimes funny stories, things we did or she did or whatever in there to make it more interesting. But the training advice is in every chapter about for younger runners, because my daughter started when she was 8, as I said. For young females, which is very important to make sure young females aren't pushed too hard and lose too much weight and things like that in their teen years. And also for older runners like me, age group competitors, and the advice for that. So it's embedded all across the book, lots of training and science. Like, for example, you mentioned endorphins. They've now found that it's endocannabinoids, not endorphins, that cause runners high. That just came out a couple of years ago. And but it's still you still get a runner's high. Well, it's still another chemical, but the endocannabinoids are a way that I don't know a lot about that, but it's basically some method that your body has of reacting to stress and making you build back stronger, physically and mentally. So it's pretty cool that they're still discovering stuff about running, but it's still very positive. Anyway, so the book is very much a training manual for younger and older runners, with lots of spicy stories and funny stories about things we did, my daughter and I.
Sorry, so I started my kids running with me. My son, I think, started running at around 6 or 7.
Right.
And now he runs all the 5Ks with me.
Oh, how old is your son now? How old is he?
Now he's 11.
Oh, okay, good.
He's faster than me, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, the irony. But he, like, sometimes he walks and run. I try to run all the way. And now I'm also starting my 5-year-old son. So tomorrow me and my older son are doing the 5K. And the younger one is doing like a kids run,
Right.
1.5 mile.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So it's fun with the kids because it's also, I feel it's a bonding time.
Absolutely.
Especially when they become teenagers and they don't talk to you. Just at least that, the whole preparation, getting the bib, the whole ritual. For me, I feel it's like a bonding time, and talking about the time and, Mom, you're slow. La, la. I mean, all of that. It's about. Did you feel that with your daughter as well?
Yes. So my daughter is very zealous about running, and maybe when she was 8 or 9, 10, she was almost overzealous, and also a very talented runner. So by the time she was 12, she was getting invitations to the big American races like the New Balance Nationals and the Penn Relays. So she was one of the top runners in North America at that age. So I had to be very careful with her because of her enthusiasm. She wanted to run more, race more, train more. And I constantly had to like reel her in like a fishing line, get her, slow her down, get her to temper her enthusiasm, watch out for overtraining. And so she says in the preface to my book that we locked heads a lot of times over that issue, where I would say no more intervals or no races for a while, or, because she had a lot of success, and it was sort of, it was hard for her to cut back or slow down a bit. But in the end, I think that was good. She says in the preface that she thanks me for that because she still loves running and she's never been seriously injured. So, that's an issue. That's a big issue. And so with your sons, they all, they're young too. And so they're going to have to just be careful. You don't want them running like, well, we were reading about some American girls who are running 300 kilometers per month, running marathons when they're running marathons when they're 13, 14 years old. So that I didn't want Stephanie doing that. It's just too much. And you just have to be careful. And just watch their mileage, make sure they, do other sports too. There's no need to specialize in running. That's another thing. You could not even run through high school and still be an Olympic running star. You don't have to run.
Yeah, I mean, here's an example. Yeah. I mean, when I moved to the U.S. from the Middle East almost 20 years ago.
Yes.
And when I first moved, I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and running is huge. So I was like, where are all these people running? What's happening? Like, that was my first thoughts. Like, why are they doing this? And then, so I just kept watching people just like they run and they wake up at 5. And I was just like, what is their drive?
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then right before I reached 40, like when you start freaking out, when you reach that 40, it was like, I want to do my first 5K. And that's how it started for me.
Yeah. So your first 5K was in your early 40s or?
Like 30, 39.
39. Okay.
39.
Yeah. Good for you.
So like right before I reached 40, I wanted to finish.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I actually wanted to finish my first 5K and write my first novel. So I accomplished it. Now I'm working on my 50s
yes,
list.
Good.
But it's going to include a marathon this time.
Yes.
But so what do you think prompted your daughter to just out of the blue that she wanted to run? Was there any like inspiration, triggers, like anything? Like what happened?
Well, she had no inkling that I had ever run. Like I never talked about it because, like I said, I'd run a marathon about 20 years before that, and then I got injured and stopped and got lazy. But I think she said we actually asked her, "Why do you want to run?" She said, "Well, there's a race at school in a couple of weeks, and we're running once or twice a week at school, and I want to train a little more." So she was getting ready for some elementary school race, the Toronto elementary school race. So I guess she's competitive, so she wanted to do well in that race.
And is she a professional runner now? Is that her job?
No, she's in med school right now, so she's pretty busy with her studies.
Okay.
But she ran for University of Western Ontario in London, Ontario, near Toronto, and for cross country. And she still is running independently right now as a med student. But she can't devote herself quite that way. But she's still pretty fast. Like she can run about a 17 flat 5K. That's pretty fast. But I mean,
17 minutes. So that's what? That's 6 minutes a mile?
No. Well, it's about just over 5 minutes a mile, right? Because 3.2, yeah, it's 5:15 pace or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, you have to do the conversion.
Or 340 per kilometer pace. Yeah, it's pretty fast, but
that's really fast. I'm not gonna tell you what my speed is.
Yeah,
especially here live. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. Everybody has their own,
It's like double that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Just to put it
and I have a lot of discussion about that in my book too, because let's face it, we're not really competing against the thousands of other people. We're just competing with ourselves, right? We're trying to make ourselves better. Yeah. And so, like when I coach cross country, I would always talk about what does it mean to be a champion? What's a champion? A champion, actually, the Latin word for the Latin etymological derivation for champion is campion, which meant you're a warrior. You're fighting for a cause. It doesn't mean you won anything. You're just part of a team that's fighting, doing your very best to contribute to a cause. So that's what campion means. That's what a champion is. So we have lots of champions in cross country who are slower runners, maybe fourth, fifth, sixth runners on their team, but they're true champions in my mind. And I always talked about that. Only one person's going to finish first, right?
So what advice would you give to someone who's starting late in life? Like top tips that they won't enjoy themselves or that they won't give up easily?
I would say connect with other runners as soon as you can, like people who are knowledgeable, running stores and runners, because they know a lot. They've gone through a lot. Maybe even, make friends with social running clubs so that you're not just trying to do this all on your own. And then they can talk about things like shoes and training patterns and all that. There's lots of ways of approaching it, but just take it easy. Don't go hog wild, willy-nilly right into it. Just gradually build up and obviously listen to your body day in every day. And if there are any little aches and pains, you'll find ways to adjust to it, but you just got to build slowly and be patient, and eventually you get to the point where you are, Natasha, where you just won't want to miss it. You won't want to miss a run, right? So
but yeah, I mean, sometimes I have to talk myself into running, especially when I'm running solo.
Yes,
that's
right.
But now I'm part of a club in the county where I live, and that's. Like I'm training for a half marathon.
Oh, great.
So that's, that's helpful. So you mentioned that running changed your life. Can you elaborate on that? And you mentioned that in the book. So how did it change?
Yeah. So for example, I became a cross country coach at my high school here in Hamilton.
Wow.
And that was fun because we had no we had no running culture at all at that school. It was all soccer and rugby. And
hockey.
Hockey, actually, I forgot to mention we had a hockey team. Running was sort of poo-pooed. Like, why would anybody just run? That's not cool, right? So myself and Wendy Jones, my co-coach, another teacher, she's a math teacher there, we decided, let's take our time, but let's build up a running program. And so because I was enthusiastic about running and also Wendy is a runner, we thought, okay, let's get something going here. And we started with first year, we had 6 kids on our team. 4 girls and 2 boys, and not even enough to have a team at any level. Like you need midget girls, you need grade 9 girls, you need 5 people for a team. So we only had one grade 9 girl, so we couldn't even have a school team, but she could run on her own in the races. And then the next year we got up to, I think, 15 or 20 runners, and we had one team, I think it was midget girls. We had 5 midget girls and then 15 other runners, but not enough for any teams in other divisions. But at least we had a bit of enthusiasm, and we started putting up posters, and we got a motto, which was training takes discipline and racing takes courage. That was our motto. And we say, we don't want people who are just disciplined, just want to train. We want you to race too and show the courage. But we also don't want you just to want to race and not go through the discipline of training. So we sort of built on that. And then I think by year 5 or 6, we were up to 45 runners. And the principal was starting to get upset with us because when we had cross-country races, he almost had to cancel school because we took so many students away to these races. So, Mark, you need 2 buses for that event? Yes, I need 2 buses. So we got actually one meet, the championships a few years ago. We needed 2 buses. We had 60 some odd kids that we had racing. Most of them weren't great runners. Some of them were athletes on other teams. Our school allowed us to do dual sports. So you could have a rugby player doing some running if they wanted to try some running. They can combine the two, or a really nice combination was soccer and running. And we had kids running during the summer on a summer program where we had an internet site where they could check in and share their stories and show their workouts. And so they would be ready for the fall. That really helped too. And that helped even people in other sports like hockey players get in shape. So they didn't have to run for us. They just wanted to run in the summer and whip themselves into shape. They could use running for that too, for other sports. So it was sort of nice. Wendy and I were quite happy, and we had so much enthusiasm by the end of it. That changed my life because I was able to change the lives of other people, students, and change the culture of our school. And again, that all started from my daughter wanting to go run with me that one day. So my enthusiasm and now I wrote this book, which is all part of that too. It's all been very positive.
Wow. So I'm going to shift gears now, and I'm going to talk about the writing and the publishing aspect of your journey. So you published 2 books. Did you self-publish? Did you go with a publisher, a hybrid publisher? How was your publishing?
Yeah, so I self-publish, which is easier these days than with the way things are. And then but it's still, you have to market your own book then, right? So I've done a number of podcasts, which like yours, which have helped for both books. And then I've done whatever else I can, but I'm not a best-selling author or anything, but it's been very satisfying. I've sold hundreds of books, which is not bad for your first book self-published, right? It's not bad.
So you would say, if I want to give a tip to authors, what would you give them the tip in terms of marketing? You think that the top thing that worked for you was podcasting?
Podcasting has been quite helpful, yes. First of all, it's great having the conversations, and then you can definitely sell a few books with podcasts. Each podcast usually generates some sales. I'm lucky enough to have the time right now because I'm retired, but you can still do podcasts on the side. And it's a great way of spreading the message. Yeah, I've found that's the main way. There's also other things you can do on social media. For example, I have a site on Quora where we answer running questions. It's called Run Free. Me and another few people answer questions that people have about track or cross country. It's called Run Free. That's fun. But you can put your credential on there and a link to your book on there as they see that you bring the book. Things like that. I've done a little bit of other social media. Some things I haven't found that helpful. Like I've tried a few things on Twitter and it just seems to disappear. Maybe my followers aren't. I don't have a lot of followers on Twitter.
Where are the runners? Like, where do the runners hang out? On
there's a site called Running Motivation on Facebook. It's pretty good. You really like that. It's got hundreds of thousands of people, but a lot of these sites don't like you promoting a book. So I wouldn't go on there and say, hey, I wrote this book. Everybody, no, you can't do that. So you got to be careful with that. But you can still engage in very positive conversations on that. And then they can see your Facebook profile.
And then they can see,
you might generate a few sales there. I found LinkedIn quite good. So let's say I do a podcast. I can then post it to LinkedIn and then use a bunch of hashtags, running hashtags and whatnot. And that generates a lot of views and whatnot, LinkedIn and Facebook. So when you do the podcast, you could use them. You could even post them on Goodreads, your blog. There's a blog on there where you can post videos. And also on Amazon, on the author page, Amazon, I can't remember if they still allow this in the United States, but you were able to put links to videos on there. I'm not sure about that right now, but I have to check on that. So there's lots of ways you can use those podcasts and then post them in various sites. LinkedIn, definitely. Facebook, Twitter, you could try if you have a good following there. And then it promotes the podcaster too, because then their podcast gets spread around too, but it promotes your book and your message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you find these podcasts? Like for anyone who's listening, I know how we found each other.
Yeah.
But how do you usually find other podcasts?
Yeah. So there's 2 sites I've used, which authors may be interested if they want to try the podcast route. One is matchmaker.fm. Matchmaker.fm. That's my main one. It's really good. It's got, I'm not sure if you're part of that or not, where you can, I'm not sure how we connected. I can't remember.
I think Podmatch.
Podmatch is the other one. So matchmaker.fm, I'd really recommend that. It's got a host of hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. Podmatch.com, I think. Podmatch is also very similar. So there you can look into different podcasts, sports podcasts, writing podcasts, whatever, and then you can send them a message saying you're interested in getting on their show, being a host, being a guest, and also you can put a profile on there. They can see that profile and maybe they reach out to you. So it's really good for connecting hosts and guests.
Yeah, it's been really good for authors. And when you self-published, did you use KDP? It's the same in Canada, right?
Yeah, I didn't use KDP, and I don't know why. Well, I think because I wanted to use Apple and Indigo and Kobo and all these other. So I think with KDP, it has to be exclusive. So I didn't. I'm sure it has its advantages, and I got to say, like probably 75 to 80% of my sales are through Amazon anyway. So maybe I could have used a KDP. But
what did you use?
Oh, yeah. I used a site that I really recommend. It was excellent. It's called Draft to Digital.
Okay.
Draft, then the number 2, Digital. Draft to Digital. So they're a self-publishing platform. I've been very happy with them. Anytime I've had any small issue, I phone and they answer the phone and they get right on it. So they provide a platform for me to, they take your text, your book, and you create the cover, but they provide a mechanism for, a platform for you to fashion your cover the way you want it. They give you options for how you want to format your book. Anyway, once you've done all that, you give it to them, and then they put it in, I guess these different publishers like Amazon and Apple have slightly different requirements. So they make sure that it's sent out to all of them and that they have what they need. And then it becomes published, and they provide one link, and I can send you this link if you want, which is called Books to Read link, which when people see that link, they click on it, they can see all the different, they can pick their favorite publisher, whether they use Kobo, and then that feeds into that one link.
Because in Canada, do you mostly use Kobo, right? More than Kindle?
We use Apple. We use Apple. Amazon is still the number one for
Kindle. Do you use Kindle or
Kindle? Yes, part of that. Yeah. So, but we have Indigo, which I don't know if Indigo is even in the States. Indigo is a Canadian company. Kobo, you have Kobo. Anyway, so Draft to Digital will provide a platform for you to be seen on all those sites. And they even have Smashwords now and a bunch of other things in Europe, like Thalia. They have, and even the library one, I can't remember the name of it. I should know.
Libby?
Yeah.
Libby, yeah.
So all of those are connected through this one Draft to Digital. And then you just sit back and, by the way, they have an author site on there too. So if anybody wants to know about you, they can click on, you can provide a picture, a bit of a bio and description of the book. So that's nice too. You don't have to build your own web page. You can just use that web page, and it's I really highly recommend it. Draft to Digital. The pricing, if I could, I think they request something like 20%. It's not a huge. They're not taking 50%. I think they ask for 10 or 20%.
And you take the rest of the royalties, right?
Well, then Amazon would take their share, which would be another. So I think when I sell a book, it's about, I retain about 50 to 55%, which that's not bad. Yeah, that's not bad.
Very good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you sign with a publisher, you're lucky if you get like 8%.
Yeah. So it's not bad. It's not bad. And then they provide you reports like where you sold the books, how many you sold each month. They put a direct deposit into your bank account. So as an author, I found it really handy as a self-published person to work with.
So where are you selling most of the books?
Most of them,
if you look at the
reports. On the reports, most of them are still Amazon.
Through what? Is there like a link? Like how did they find through Amazon?
It's Amazon US, Amazon Canada, Amazon India, Amazon Japan.
But like, can you how did they reach the Amazon page? Like, do you know?
I don't know. I think somebody just goes to Draft Digital, they click on Amazon, and depending on where they're located, it sets them to the proper Amazon, even Amazon UK. Those Amazons are somewhat independent. They all have different ratings of your book and sales of your book. So they'll direct them to the right one. I think that's how it works. I'm not even sure, but most of them are Amazon US and Amazon Canada, where I've gotten sales. But it also depends where I target my marketing. Like if I target, I've tried a few little Facebook ads too, and I've tried some Amazon ads actually recently. I'm not sure they're paying off. Like they do generate some sales, but you can target the different countries through those ads. But yeah, I can't answer your question. I don't know exactly how they know which Amazon to click on.
So can you sell now your book anywhere in the world?
Yes.
And they do print on demand?
Yes.
So let's say I want to go to Dubai. Because like my friends in Dubai was like, how do you get your book? And it's not there.
They print on demand. They started printing on demand last year, Drafted Digital. And it's very good. It's worked pretty well. So they don't have a storage or an inventory anywhere. They just, when you order the book, it's printed. And that it takes about a week or two for the person, from what I've heard from people who've ordered my book, to get that book. It's not bad. It's not bad, yeah.
So it's mostly for international, because I think Amazon does not, if you do KDP, Amazon is not going to do print on demand for all countries, correct?
And I don't know KDP. I can't answer that question. But,
okay. Yeah. But, okay, we're just getting in the weeds.
Yeah, no problem. But good for authors.
I want authors to hear this, because it just gives them different ideas because the publishing industry is changing. You gave us a lot of ideas, the Quora, the podcast. Yep. So what's in the future for you? Are you working on another book?
Yes, I am. I enjoy a little bit like writing. Once you get the bug, you want to keep going. So I gotta admit, I've been lazy because I'm training for this triathlon. So I can only do so many things, but I have been, I can show you if I turn the camera here. You can see all those books over there. I'm reading all these books, and I've got one example here. This is an author, The Battle for Your Brain, and it probably shows backwards on there, but just came out, a Duke University professor, Nida Farahani, wrote this book, and it's an amazing book. It's about all the new technologies, artificial intelligence, that are going to be able to read and detect what's going on in your head, which is a little bit scary to know, but
your deepest, darkest thoughts.
So it's going to be a science fiction. It's going to involve neuropsychology. Those books I'm reading are all the old psychological classics, like Freud and whatnot. And so I want it to be psychological. I want it to be paranoid. I want it to be dystopian. And I want it to be about the future, where they basically can read your mind, which I think is going to happen. They will be able to detect what you're thinking, especially if you're verbalizing. Like, you know how sometimes you talk to yourself. They can already detect some words that you're saying to yourself without you saying them. So that's a little scary.
When I run, I talk to myself.
Yeah, well, they'll be able to know what you're thinking about. And so
they're usually positive.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Now, if they read my thoughts at the end of the day when I'm like upset and drink a glass of wine, that's a problem.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a society. It's going to be a future society, and where it's not freedom of speech, but freedom of thought is the actual issue. I think that's going to be
do we have control? Yeah, do we have control over our own thoughts?
So I'm really going to go to town on this one, and
that sounds like fun.
It's going to be fun, but a little scary. But it's not going to be a comedy, I don't think. Anyway, I'm working on this. I've done a lot of reading. I haven't written one sentence yet, but I have done a fair amount of preparation. I am sort of getting ready to start plotting out.
Have you read Murakami, what I talk about when I talk about running?
I have read that. What a wonderful author. Yeah.
Do you feel like running helps you write, like Murakami?
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite book of all of his books.
Yeah.
That is
it's a great, he's a great author. I haven't read any of his other stuff. I've only read the running book, but apparently he's a wonderful author, and he's a real talent. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts to both authors and runners before we conclude?
Well, both are positive. It's never too late on either front. I started running in my mid-40s. I didn't write my first book till I was 61. 61.
Well, you look great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm hanging on. Yeah, I'm competing in the 60 to 65-year-old age group category in Spain in the triathlon. But it's never too late on either front. It's good for you, good for your body and your mind. And I encourage people to explore either. Go for it.
It's never too late to do anything, to run a marathon or to write a book.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this been wonderful, and I personally learned a lot both about running and publishing as well. And I hope anyone who's listening or watching will also get the same benefit. And for the audience out there, thank you for watching another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. And until we meet again. Thank you for tuning in to Read and Write with Natasha. I'm your host, Natasha Tynes. If today's episode inspired you in any way, please take the time to review the podcast. Remember to subscribe and share this podcast with fellow book lovers. Until next time, happy reading, happy writing.